glide by. And like a float plane over the sunrise, that look in your eyes still makes me high. You're my summertime, hot 95. You're my joyride. Oh, big mud tires, you're my poolside. Come rain or shine, you're my summertime, my all the time. I'm loving this moment, the way that you hold me on a starry night. You're my summertime. Oh yeah, yeah, you're my summertime.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Harris, and I'm here on Choices with Jeanette, and I'm here with Shai Littlejohn, and she is a lawyer turned songwriter, country singer. In fact, no, not turned. She's still doing it. Still
I
doing
do both.
You still do both.
You don't have to choose.
It's not a choice.
In
Yeah,
the
exactly.
great U.S. of A. You can be what you want to be. You can do it all.
How long have you been doing country music?
For about 5 years. I mean, I've listened to it, but I just started this musical journey as of about 5 years ago, where I actually started doing it professionally. Before, it was more of a hobby. Now I actually write my own songs, I produce them, and I actually go on and do shows and on the tour circuit.
Oh, wow.
So that's been over the last 5 years.
You didn't start doing music. You originally went to law school. So can you talk a little bit about the transition from starting being a lawyer and then moving into music?
Well, in my home, education was incredibly important. And so my parents wanted me to major in something that was more practical, I'd say, than music. But I also never really spoke of a sincere interest in music when I was younger. It was just sort of a passive thing. And so I went ahead and majored in journalism, and then I went to law school at Howard University, and I just got into the workforce and as a lawyer, and spent many years doing that, and finally deciding that I needed more balance in my life. I wanted to pursue my my life's dream, and that wasn't law, it was music.
Did you feel a connection to actually doing law, though?
Well, I felt a connection to it because I was raised in a household with lawyers, so I probably am an overly analytical person. I had job after job, and I realized that, one, I like to work for myself. And two, I wanted something that wasn't so all-consuming as a career. In law, when you're employed, and I was a Washington lawyer because I was in college and law school in Washington, D.C., and then I worked in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And it's not a 40-hour-a-week job. It's a 60-hour-a-week job.
Oh, okay, yes.
So I didn't have time for the other things in my life that I enjoyed, like music.
Like the music, okay.
And so I think after a while I realized that each job was about title and prestige and salary, but there wasn't a level of personal satisfaction and fulfillment in it.
Okay.
So that's why I thought, I've got to live without regrets and do what I've always wanted to do, which is spend more time with music. And so I kind of took off.
Is that a motif that's present in your music? Like, do you have any songs that talk about
I do.
that aspect of pursuing a passion or something along those lines?
I have a song called Make This City My Small Town, and I wrote that.
I felt that. I felt that was
you
the
felt
song
that was
for it.
And it
I
starts
felt that was
with
the
when
song.
you're from a small podunk town and you have a big dream. Sometimes there's nothing you can do but pack your clothes in a rented truck and leave.
Right.
And then it goes into, sort of an autobiographical, which I hope is a relatable experience of moving to a new town to try to, or a big city, and sort of conquering that city to make it your town, making it tangible for yourself.
I don't wanna swim the sea like a little fish, but when my life can be much bigger than this. Oh, now I'm a million miles from all I've known. I risked it all to see how far I can go. I'll learn my way around, plant my stakes and break new ground, and make this city my small town.
I'm interested to find out, because you are a country singer, why country?
Well, initially when I started listening to country music, it was because of Shania Twain. And
Okay.
even though Shania's very country pop, once I started listening to her and really liking her image and her marketing and the production on her songs, that kind of led me to digging into country music more. And at that point, I started listening to George Jones and George Strait and Dolly Parton, folks like that, and thought these storylines are so compelling and fun and clever that I knew that that was the kind of music I liked the most. But I didn't live in the South. I grew up in Ohio.
I was going to ask that.
There's a little country music in Ohio, but not a ton.
Okay.
Not that country music is just in the South, but it's definitely more prevalent there.
Absolutely. And a lot of the imagery used in country music is predominantly from the South.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, I grew up in a General Motors town in Dayton, Ohio, but I spent my summers in a small town in Oberlin, Ohio, which is near Cleveland. And so I never had necessarily a traditional country lifestyle, but I certainly have that small town grassroots type of feeling in my life, in my upbringing.
I was interested to know, so when you're writing songs for country music, do you phrase them differently? Do you potentially, I understand that country music maintains one of the things that I've always enjoyed, and that I even try and bring into my own artistry, is that their ability to tell stories. So I know definitely you're doing that, and I can hear that in your music, but are you also changing the way you tell the story also? You know, like in the one song where you're talking about you were watching Granddad go off into you wanted to go for the tractor ride. Is that story necessarily true for you? Or?
Yes, it is a true story.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't know that he said all of those things specifically that way, but I always wanted to go on the tractor, and I would always, it was always stored behind the house, my grandmother's house, and I would go just sit on it because he would never let me go, be on the tractor. So I would just sit on it while it was turned off and pretend like I was riding it,
Well, that song is that much better now that I know it's absolutely true, too.
Yeah.
You can find what you're after and what to do. Let the wind breathe a life in you. You'll know where to plant your seed when you see the view from your tractor seat. The view from your tractor seat.
I know one thing that you have, and I read it in another interview, that you're moving more towards, especially, is being more personal in your music. So for people that may be creating their own artwork or their own music, how much do you think of their personal life should they share in music? Or should it be just flat and relatable to everyone?
Well, that's the key. It has to be relatable in order for people to be able to buy into it and picture themselves in the song or feel the emotion of it. And I think some of the best writers are able to do that, and they're able to they don't mind being vulnerable. And this is where I think being a lawyer can be a handicap.
Okay.
Because, lawyers aren't, you spend all your days, hours and hours a week.
60 hours.
60 hours a
week.
Precisely. You spend these hours being professional, being controlled, and you represent a client. So you're not supposed to be emotional and lay all your cards on the table. You're supposed to be the exact opposite. And so to wear that hat and then to turn it off and say, now I'm going to bare my soul. I'm going to tell you
Yes.
all of these personal things that I hope you can identify with. And even if you don't, then I might make a fool of myself. But it definitely is a challenge to wear both hats.
So how is that working for you then? Now that I've heard the struggle straight from you.
Well, it's getting better. I find my songs get better year after year because I'm opening up a little bit more, and I think possibly it's because I'm doing less law and more music. Maybe that's why. But also it's, I think, getting older and being at a point where you just do what you want to do, what's important to you, what you value, and don't worry about all those other accolades or outside signs of success.
Absolutely. And that's something that's also shaped you, your artistry. Like when you're looking at what you're going to do with the music as far as progress, not necessarily looking for accolades. What are you more so looking for?
Yeah, I'm looking to be the best songwriter I can. I get so excited when I have a new idea that kind of flashes, when I'm cooking in the kitchen or something.
Man, the kitchen is a great place for songwriting. I don't know why that is.
And unfortunately, the car is when I'm driving.
The car is too, yeah.
Because you can't stop and write something in the middle of the road.
Here's what you do. Thankfully, they have smartphones now, and they've got recording apps on them. So when you get a little melody, just pull up the app and do it.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to use your cell phone while you're driving.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
too.
so
we're not advising people to do that. We're just saying that
I know.
some people may. Some people may do that.
But it's
under
tough.
emergency.
I mean, sometimes I do keep a notepad and a pencil in my passenger seat in my car because or if I think of something and don't have that, I'll just keep repeating it to myself until I finally get to a place where I can write it down. Because if you don't repeat it, it's just
it gets
gone.
lost.
It's lost.
And then you'll also have this terrible moment where if you didn't repeat it over and over again, you finally come back and you're ready to write and you're like, oh, that doesn't sound the way, it sounded better earlier.
Right. Exactly. The times I use cell phone recorders, I'll think I have something killer, and then 2 days later I play it and I say, oh, that was terrible, and I'll just delete it. But in the moment, it seemed awesome.
At this point, you're still doing, some of the law still doing the music. But I heard you talking earlier, and you were talking about the importance of balance. Because not everyone's going to be able to make their full, be able to pay all their bills, be able to create a savings and all this type of thing just from getting into the music industry. So what's your perspective on balance as far as someone that's, because there's many, and I think a lot of people that are young artists especially, they're starting out and they're already working like other jobs and then they're doing their music part-time. It's just something that they do. So what's your opinion on like balance for an artist?
Well, I think it's important to realize that you have to support yourself. You have to be able to eat. You might want to go visit family and buy a plane ticket every once in a while. Maybe you want to own a home, those sorts of things. It's very difficult to do that in music, even though today in music we have so many more vehicles to get your music to the public.
Absolutely.
It's difficult to make a living in music.
And especially with so many different avenues to do it, then it just becomes a little bit more cluttered, in fact, too.
Yes, it's a crowded universe. To get your music heard, it takes a lot of time, energy. It doesn't happen overnight, and you have to develop a following. You have to move from free gigs that you perform to finally starting getting paid for your gigs, and then hopefully getting paid to actually cover the cost of your gigs. And then maybe you might be one of the people that actually makes a full living on it. But if you don't make a full living on it, it doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It doesn't mean it's not still worth doing.
Absolutely. I think that there is a freedom in it, perhaps, because if I was trying to do music, or an artist was trying to do music full-time, this has got to make me money. I think it's going to it's going to slightly pervert their art or their craft, because they're creating it with the intention of selling it.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily, their full expression, just in terms of, this is the way I want to express it. I don't care if it's not selling. I don't care if it's going to make money.
Yes.
But so what do you think? You think it's the same?
Well, I agree with you. I think plenty of artists try to chase the market, so to speak. And in terms of songwriters, plenty will try to write songs like they hear on the radio today.
Absolutely.
And if you're a songwriter, or even if you're a performing artist, if you write a song today, it's not going to be on the radio tomorrow.
No,
it will definitely take 9 months to a year or something. So you're going to be behind the curve. That's why you have to let your art control, your heart control, and produce the art that just comes naturally. If you try to, shape it to be like someone else's production, then you're probably going to end up disappointed. Now, there are some success stories of copycats.
Yes, that's true.
But then there's entertainers, and then there's artists, and then there's writers, and then there's copycats, and you can pick who you want to be.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
I appreciate you doing the interview with me.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I want you to share with the people how they can find out more about you and find out your music. The whole album is on your website.
It is. And my website is ShaiLittlejohn.com. It's spelled ShaiLittlejohn.com. And you can look me up there. I have some videos on YouTube, and it would be great for you to check me out.
She's on Facebook, and I think...
Facebook and Twitter.
Absolutely.
Twitter handle, Shai Littlejohn also.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for watching Choices with Jeanette.